Well, good afternoon. I think we're going to get started. We are doing our best to make sure that we have a microphone today, but it's very quiet, as you can tell. So we're working on getting that fixed up. In the meantime, we're going to talk really loud, and I'm hoping that you can all hear. I know I'm loud. I hope you can hear me. Okay. I'm on the, hopefully, I am on the tail end of a raging sinus infection I've had for the last week. So a little nasally, and I don't mind at all if you say, hey, I couldn't hear that, say it again. Just so that you know that that's my intention, is that you can hear what we're doing up here. That's really important. We're sure looking forward to having you for the session that we're going to have today. What's age got to do with it? I think this is really good. There's so many things going on around us right now with age, aren't there? Isn't there? I mean, politically, we're talking about age. It's in our everyday life. There are suggestions, decisions made about age, and I think it's really important for us to look at those and see how they might impact us. Where's our duct tape? Right here. Okay, good. So when we get ready to leave today, after what we talk about, if anyone here feels like they might need to have some duct tape to cover up when they leave with all of the different isms that we have about ageism, we have a roll right here. Just wanted to let you know, make sure you know that's what that's for.
He's going to come down.
Okay, they're going to come in. So in the meantime, though, let's just go ahead and get rolling, and then we'll work hard to keep us up as loud as possible, but we want to get us started. So, you know, all of you know, those of you that have been to several of our seminars, and I think how many of you are new today? Okay, we have one person. Welcome. Thank you for coming. And I love that outfit.
Thank you.
We'd like to ask you to hold your questions until later, only because we want to keep the seminar going. But the other part of that is that we feel like what may be on your mind right this minute is probably going to come up on the next slide. So what we've done inside of your handout is we have a place where you can take some notes. And those of us that have been here on a regular basis, we all know we do make time for questions, because that's super important to us. We have things that we'd like to ask, but we want to know how you felt about that or things that you'd like to share. So keep that in mind. And then in addition to that, wrong direction, our team. So we have one new person here. I'm Ingrid Sullivan. I am a real estate agent, and I'm a right-sizing expert. My partner in crime and my partner in business, the name tag guy back here, is John Sullivan. He's also a right-sizing expert. That we've been doing this now for many years, but we've really honed our practice, our real estate practice, more so towards 55 and older. We work with first-time home buyers and sellers that are getting their next house that's bigger, but more of our clients are 55 and older, just so that you know that. We have another member, John Pennington. He's up north in Princeton, moved here from Colorado, and he's pursuing his real estate career up there. And then Debbie Ford. A lot of you have probably spoken to Debbie Ford to say, I want to register for that, or I can come, or I can't come. Where is it going to be? Is there going to be parking? Is it close? All those things. Debbie's a really important part of our team. She's our operations manager. She puts together all of the Eventbrite invites that you're receiving, the schedules that you're receiving, in addition to the PowerPoint presentation that we use most every time, whether we have a panel of speakers or whether we're doing it ourselves. And today, I actually have the pleasure of doing this seminar with Debbie. So she and I are going to be talking about what's age got to do with it in more of a conversational way, to talk about some of those things that we all hear, and like I mentioned, are very current and present in our lives right now. So Debbie and I'll do that together. Our business model, there should be, it's in the handout, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
This just kind of gives you an idea just briefly. These are the different things that we're involved in. I mentioned that we're real estate agents, and because of that, our clients need more services than just sign in the yard. So we have relationships with handyman contractors, several different estate liquidators, movers, packers, organizers, a lot of different retirement communities that work with us, as well as elder law, which has been really great for us because oftentimes as we age, we think we have all those things in place, but we don't realize that if they're 20 years old, they're not current. So it's great to have an elder law attorney work with us. That's our senior downsizing experts, part of our business. And then the very last one is why you're here today, Smart Senior Series. We love sharing information with you. We love being learners. So what we're doing is we're always listening to different partners that we are in business with and looking for different topics. I just came back from a mastermind in Orlando with 16 other people across the country that have a business makeup or model like I do. And we all get together and we talk about what are we doing in our businesses and how can we improve that? What are some of the bumps and the hurdles that we're going through? What are new things we need to be talking about? And it's really great for me to be able to share that information back to my team and to learn from them on how they're doing their seminars. So oftentimes at the beginning of the year, when we're starting to plan what will we offer this year, because we're usually off in January. We don't get started until February. We're sitting down and brainstorming with the other individuals. We'll be with them again at conference next month in Oklahoma City, and there's about 300 of us. We talk about different types of seminars that we want to offer and different guests that we would offer to speak, that kind of thing. So it's been a really great opportunity for us to grow. So we've got some new things here for those of you that are our regulars. You've got a new feedback form. Did you notice it's yellow? Yellow. So we wanted to make sure, I tell you, you're probably almost 100% giving us feedback on our seminars, which we crave. We always want to know, what do we need next? What's the next thing we should consider? What are we doing? But one of the other things that we've added to this feedback form, and you'll see that at the very bottom, this came from my mastermind group that I was with in Orlando. At the very bottom it says, would you like to have coffee with me? Would you like to have a coffee date with me? We could talk about my pets, your pets. What do you like to do for a hobby? We could talk about downsizing. We could talk about decluttering. We could talk about any of those things, because oftentimes people come up afterwards and say, oh, I'd really like to just share some information with you, but I know you're oh so busy. Well, no, we're not oh so busy. So if you'd like to schedule a coffee date, just to kind of talk about whatever you'd like, I'm setting that up as an option for you, and just let me know and we'll get you on the calendar. We good?
Testing.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay. All right. Well, Debbie. Let's just go ahead and get going.
Testing.
Oh, much better. Much better. Does that work? Okay, super. All right. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with our seminar for today. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start. What is ageism? Well, it's how it refers to how we think, we feel, and we act towards others. And that can be in a discrimination against older people. It's sort of ingrained in our culture, so we don't even notice it. You know, people tell jokes or, say things, and it doesn't really resonate with us that might be ageist. And it's typically not addressed by equity and inclusion departments in workplaces or institutions. They focus more on gender and race, but they don't really include age all the time. And it's really considered one of the last socially acceptable prejudices. Excuse me.
So what I'd like to do to get started, I have a little story, not long, but a little story that I'd like you to read. Some notes that I made about this particular slide. Ageism, so people may say, well, their hair's gray, so obviously they're old. I will tell you that my hairdresser tells me every time I go in to see her, she said, Ingrid, people pay big bucks to get that color. Don't mess up your hair. So people make decisions about you based on things like that. Maybe you've got some back issues right now. That might be another decision. People say, oh, well, clearly they're not going to be the candidate for this because they can't do those things. We want to make sure that, a lot of times I hear in our office right now, in our Keller Williams office in Arlington, there's over 300 agents. A lot of the agents in our office are brand new. They just got out of high school. They're just getting started. So if they see somebody that's in their 50s, what do they think? Old. They're too old. So let me read you this story that I put together this morning, just to give you some ideas, and I want you to think about the information you're receiving. It's going to be about 3 different people. So Eduardo is one of them. Eduardo has just completed his 10th Grand Prix race in Monaco. He loves race cars. He loves electric bikes. He rides an electric bike to work every day. He runs a business that he started in his 20s. He's recently completed a university program for professionals who want to recharge and become continuous learners. He skis every winter with his family. He's described as thoroughly enjoying life. He travels the world with his wife as often as he can. He's always looking for ways to contribute in his community. Eduardo. Maria. Maria has been a widow for years. She has several chronic conditions, including heart disease, diabetes, pulmonary disease, and recently she had a stroke. Her recovery took 3 months, and Medicare did not cover her non-skilled home care. Her only daughter, Erin, left her job taking unpaid leave from her career in an investment firm to come across the country to care for her mother. Maria is now using her time with her daughter to plan her wishes for her future health care and legacy. Kim. Kim has just started a new company, creating a line of clothing for older women who are active and do not fit in the younger Lululemon styles. She visits distributors around the country. She belongs to focus groups with other women and learns about product improvements and new opportunities. She uses her products in her dance studio and her exercise classes. Now, as you're thinking, rank these 3 individuals, Eduardo, Maria, and Kim, in the order from youngest to oldest. Okay, thinking forward now. Who wants to volunteer what they think they are? Yes.
I'll volunteer. The first gentleman.
Eduardo.
He's probably quite old.
Okay.
He's a gray-haired senior.
Okay.
Living life to its fullest and giving back.
Great. Okay.
The second one was
Maria.
That's the one that was ill.
Yes.
She's probably the youngest.
Okay. All right. And Kim.
Her husband died young, and she's got all these problems.
Ailments. Right.
And that's why Medicare didn't pay
Maybe so.
so much of her needs. And then the other one,
Kim.
she's also a senior.
Okay. All right. All 3 individuals are 75 years old. Is that interesting? What they're doing with their lives at that age. So Eduardo's life, like you said, is full of vim and vigor and purpose. Kim is a vibrant olderpreneur, actively building a new business. And Maria, with her health problems, unfortunately, she happens to be the stereotype that people would say old. Which goes along with this slide that we have here on the screen that Debbie was explaining to us earlier. So let's move to our next one.
So we touched on this a little bit, but how is ageism expressed? Through stereotypes, how we think about people, and that's distorted characteristics.
Like senior, silver, retiree, silver sneaker, old school, old thinking.
Yeah, or that they have bad hearing, bad vision, arthritis, just their typical stereotypes. Prejudice, how we feel about others. So unfavorable opinions or feelings regarding aging adults without sufficient knowledge, thought, or reason.
Exactly.
Okay. Discrimination, how we act towards others. So unjustified behavior toward older adults based on characteristics. And then this one, positive or benevolent ageism. So prejudice, but it's masked with respect or kindness.
So for me, and I think I've shared with many of you, I'm first generation American for my family. And I grew up in a household where children are made to be seen and not heard, period. You are respectful to your elders. Doesn't matter what age they are, what they know or don't know. They're older than you. Don't ever talk up to them. So one of the things that this brought up for me is the amount of disrespect that we see that comes across from people that are younger than us that think that we don't know anything, that we're old school, we're old times, we're not up with what's going on. That seems to be something that's very common. Or, and I will say this, when John and I met, he charmed me with his, I want to say, Texas charm, honey, sugar, all of that. I loved all of that. But one of the things that was really important to me that I didn't think was important to me is that he would rush to the door and open the door for me. I will say this in a way that comes with disappointment and also with happiness, is that my son does not think that's important. But I will tell you this, my grandson, he will trip over everybody in front of him to get to that door and open that door for people because he feels it's important. So, to me, that's an example of that. One thing I wanted to add to that, sorry, but, when Debbie's talking about words, ageism, silver sneakers, retiree, silver, senior, it's the words that actually shape the understanding that we have for those people, the words that we use. That's why sometimes we need this, right? It's the way that we describe people that actually builds that image of maybe they who are or who are not.
Don't take this silver, by the way.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, you're right. I should have got the black one out. Okay.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about stereotype, but here are some of the most common ones.
Say this first.
Okay.
So what we're doing, and this is a new thing for us, we're just kind of sharing this together. Debbie's done a lot of research on this as we share together. But the thing that's important for you to think about here is how we think, how we feel, and how we act towards other individuals. And as we start to talk about this particular slide, we have some examples we're going to share.
So the first one, technologically inept. The second one, physically frail, unwilling or unable to try new things, lonely and isolated, forgetful or cognitively declined.
Okay, so looking at some of the things that we have here, it used to be, and I will say used to be, it used to be as much as 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, a lot of the people that we would encounter in our business were very insecure when it came to doing something on their cell phone. Now, the cell phone's become that thing now that in a lot of cases, for me, I've got it with me all the time for obvious reasons. But for a lot of people that we know that have moved to senior living, most of people are not getting a landline anymore, so they've got that cell phone that they've got to have somewhere in something that they can have with them so that they can communicate with people. But here's another example that really falls into what we do. When we started our seminars, we started seminars before COVID. And we really had a great following. We had some great things that we were doing, and we didn't want to just lay that down because COVID. So what we did was we talked to people about the ability to use Zoom. And most of the people that we work with or have relationships with would say, oh, I don't know how to do that. I'm not interested in doing that. But here was the thing that came about. How many of you have had a televisit with your doctor? A lot of us have had that, where they want to get on Google or something to have a visit with you. So what we did is Debbie and her husband put together a video on how to set up Zoom and what would happen if you ran into this snag or that snag. And successfully, we're proud to say we had a lot of people, the very first one we did, that were so empowered because they knew how to use Zoom, and then they could take that on to other things in their lives. But we all like to see or think that we are technically, whatever, inept. Yeah, inept. I mean, that's important to think about. There's a lot of new stuff that's coming out that it's a choice we have, but a lot of things we've actually adapted to. Physically frail. Well, for that, I mean, sometimes if you're frail, you're not feeling well, you may feel that you're not interested in those things. You're doing all you can do to keep up with the duties of the day, correct? Or here's an example. I asked Debbie yesterday, I said, would your dad take on Facebook or TikTok?
He does Facebook, but he would never do a TikTok video.
He just friended me.
Did he?
Yes.
Yeah, he does Facebook. But he would never do a TikTok because he's technologically okay, but he's not savvy enough, I don't think, to do TikTok, and he would be intimidated by having to record videos or do something like that.
How about your mom?
Well, my mom's visually impaired, so she's...
But you've made adjustments.
Yeah, we've made adjustments, and she does text. I've got it where she can text from her computer and stuff like that. So she definitely tries, and she was pretty technologically savvy before she started losing her eyesight, so that helped.
Yeah, that's really
And
good.
I think we've run across in our business, just in the last 5 years or so, we used to have nobody would want to do electronic signings. They all wanted to sign in ink, and now we're seeing more and more people that are willing to do electronic signatures.
Well, I actually have a client right now that is that exact person that said, I don't want to do anything that I'd have to email to you, that you would have to scan to me. And when you're involved in a real estate contract, there's a lot of different documents that happen. One in particular is that when you're negotiating repairs, there's some kind of a amendment that we have to make based on the decisions everyone has made. And we had one just recently, and I called and said, hey, I'm going to be in the area sometime tomorrow. Can you meet up with me so we could sign this document real quick? And she actually said, well, if you want to walk me through it on the phone, I think I'm going to be okay to try it. Well, guess what? I called her on the phone. Guess what? She already did it. It was just one click. But a lot of people think with all the scams going on right now, that their information could be captured. But knowing this, that when you are using a program like a DocuSign that's approved, even though it looks like you have a beautiful signature online, behind the scenes, that's all encrypted. It doesn't look that way in computer language, in the computer world. Okay, let's talk about this one.
So these are some of the types of ageism, personal or interpersonal. So that'd be bias against a person or group based solely on age. And this is a, face-to-face, person-to-person kind of thing. And some examples are the kids say, okay, boomer. You've heard of that. But it works both ways.
In your handout.
You might think of a younger person, oh, you wouldn't understand because you're too young. So. And then we have self-directed or internalized, so things you think about yourself. An internalized negative attitude toward aging or towards people of your own age group. And so that might be, oh, I'm too old to try that, or I'm having a senior moment. Things we say about ourselves or to ourselves. But institutional, so workplaces or organizations, rules and practices that discriminate against people or groups because of age. So your employer might say to you, traditionally, we encourage people to retire at 65. So they're trying to usher you out the door.
So I have another story about that. I have another client that I've worked with, and she was working with the government, and when she first took her job, according to her, she was in her early 30s, and she moved into that position because the person that she was moving into the position of was retiring, was of retirement age. When she turned 65, she made that very same decision, that it was time for her to step back and let someone younger step into her job, because that's what you do, which I thought was interesting based on what Debbie's sharing with us.
And then the last one here, which is kind of funny, the unintentional. So people are unaware of their bias and tend to compliment you or help you and say things like, oh, you look so good for your age. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to have Debbie go over these percentages, and then I've got some examples there as well.
Yeah, so this is from a study that I found, experiences of everyday ageism. And so these are some of the statistics. 93% say they regularly experience some form of ageism. 80% agree that they have health concerns, and that's part of getting older, even though they're in good health. 65% say they regularly see, hear, or read things suggesting that older adults are unattractive or undesirable. And 45% report incidences of interpersonal ageism, so experiences to themselves from other people.
So kind of extending that, some things hearing. So I know that for my dad, when my dad started to lose his hearing, we would always make fun of it because he would say something that wasn't really close to what it was that we were trying to describe. And we would think that he was joking around with us when he just couldn't catch the right word. Vanity. I have one good ear, my right ear. My left ear's got tinnitus in it. I've had it for 30 years, a lot of noise. So there's been times when I've gone to a hearing appointment that my doctor would suggest that maybe I would consider hearing aids. And of course I would say, oh my gosh, I wear my hair short. I mean, that would be really obvious. Everybody would know. What would happen if I did try them over the weekend and they really worked? Would I have to keep them on? Those kinds of things. That could be something that's, could be an issue. I don't think I'm alone there, by the way. Seeing. So based on how people see or how you present may cause someone to make a different choice about whether or not you're the one that they want in that position. But I will say this. With our experience working with retirement communities especially, oftentimes we hear from the residents that they hired a young girl at the front desk that has no clue about what our lifestyle's like or what our needs are, and we wish that they would hire someone that would actually be a little bit older and understand how to work with adults that are mature, 55 and older. Something to think about. Turn down for a promotion. Oh, I know you could do a really good job on this and it probably should be yours, but this person's probably going to be here a little longer than you will, and it may be more appropriate for us to give her that opportunity, don't you think? Right? Or how about this? Overlooked for a challenging assignment. You've traveled all these years. There's an assignment that's coming up, but gosh, I don't know. It may not work for you. What happens if you go to another country and you don't get your medicine isn't there? Examples like that. Debbie and I talked today that I don't think there's DEI. There may be. There's DEI out there, but is ageism a part of that? We don't hear about that much. Is that a part of that?
Say what DEI is.
DE, go ahead.
Department of Equity and Inclusion, so in workplaces or organizations.
So that would be race.
Usually race and gender are the ones that they're working on, and like I said earlier, not necessarily age. You don't hear as much about that.
It may be, but it's, like she said, not talked about that much. Isolated and left out. Oh, I'm sure at your age you probably wouldn't want to be involved in that. So we didn't invite you because we thought, you usually leave the office early. Encouraged to retire. Talk about this, Debbie.
Well, my husband was working a job, and 4 people were laid off. All 4 people were over 50. All 4 people were very highly paid. And, so it was felt that they were laid off because of that, rather than because of any workplace issues or any financial reasons with the business. And so I think that happens from time to time.
Oh, I think it does. John, before he came to work with us, he has yet today does not like the term right-sizing, because what does that mean to you, John, when you hear right-sizing?
Well, you're getting canned.
Canned. He says canned. Okay, getting canned. Okay. Yeah, forced out or layoff. So, some of those terms, that's what those things mean today. Let's talk about our next slide.
These are some fun things you might see on social media. The first one there actually is beauty products. And you hear all the things, age-defying, anti-aging, repair the signs of aging. So it's all that connotation that aging is bad, so we want to stop it, we want to reverse it. And then you have this cartoon here. It says, my memory is so bad. Well, how bad is it? How bad is what? So you see these jokes, you've got kids dressed up for the 100th day of school as 100-year-old people. This little lady in the corner, what channel is the Netflix? Because she's technologically inept and can't find the Netflix. And I'm guilty of this one, over-the-hill birthday parties. We gave my husband an over-the-hill party, you remember? The greedy granny game, and then this one, I think Ingrid loved this one.
I do. I couldn't figure out what that was. Can you see the 2 remotes here?
So they've taped up one of the remotes so that Grandma can only change the channel or turn up the volume, and she can't mess up the TV.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah, so that's just perpetuating those attitudes about aging. And then I saw this on Facebook the other day, and it struck me funny because these are people we thought were old back in the 70s and 80s, and they really were not old, 40s and 50s, and 39 for Flo down here. So I think that you can see that things are kind of changing and evolving, and we're not thinking of those people as old. And these are some TV shows and movies that have been out recently that have prominent roles for people in their 70s and 80s. I think Jane Fonda was 82, 83, something like that when Grace and Frankie was going on. So I think we're seeing some change, and we're seeing some people being portrayed more as vibrant and not just the grandma in the background and things like that.
So, here's the other thing. 70 is the new 50. I mean, that's really important because you're seeing people that are recreating themselves, as within the story that I shared with you earlier. All 3 of those individuals were 75 years old. One of them had been working a business since 20. Another one created a brand new business as they got into an older age. There are people right now, I can give you an example on this one. A gentleman that we work with has just been called back to work because 2 of the largest clients, he's in the computer business, 2 of their largest clients have been tough to work with and bring back into the fold and be customers of theirs. Before he left the business, they loved working with him. Orders were coming in like they were supposed to. But since he's left the business, it's been really difficult for them to work with a new purchase person, etc. So they have now given him an offer with a salary for an 18-month time period that was more than he made before, because they want those clients to come back. So we're seeing now that there's also mentoring programs where maybe that person retired, but that's the person that had all the systems in place. That's the person that knew how to make the change from that payroll system to the new payroll system. And I think that what's happening society-wise is they're looking to see that putting people out to pasture is not really the way to go. There's a lot of people that bring more value back into the business that maybe aren't ready to retire yet, even though the age hasn't changed to 75 yet. I think it's 65 still. Was that age that you would decide to do something different? Yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote down a few notes. So 70 is the new 50, but why is that the case? I think number one, people are living longer. They're staying healthier longer because of medical advances and medications and things like that. They're staying active longer because they're healthier. And then I think attitudes are starting to change about aging. So I think that's why we can say 70 is the new 50. And actually, a lady in our office, when she turned 90, Jean, I made her a keychain that said 90 is the new 50. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing. She's in her mid-90s now, and she's still what we call a transaction coordinator for a couple different real estate agents because she loves doing what she's doing and being engaged and being involved. And, you know, obviously, a few of the things that she's done in the past have been shared with other individuals, but she's still that mail-out lady.
Okay, the next couple of slides, these are from an AARP study that I read about, and they show negative images versus positive images. So this was a 2019 study from AARP, said they found that people age 50 and older are significantly underrepresented compared to their younger peers in images appearing in online news and social media advertisements. And how older people are represented or not conveys messages about them. So on the left-hand side, we have images that show people being technologically inept. And then on the right side, it's people using technology and showing that they're not, that they're competent to use it. So when they did this, they showed these images to people and then did a survey. And so when they showed the left-hand images to people and then they filled out the survey, they would have negative thoughts or negative connotation of how older people interact with technology. But when they showed them the positive images, then they'd have a more positive response on the survey. And then we'll go to the next one. And this one's similar. It's to do with mobility and social engagement. So on the left-hand side, you've got people looking sad and lonely and all alone in their wheelchair. On the right-hand side, you see them more engaged. Even though they have a mobility issue, they're out there doing things and engaging with other people. And so and similarly, they did the survey. And so they said these images on the right side, they help amplify positive change in attitude and strengthen people's view of older people and what they can do. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, and I think that as we've talked about this in different seminars that we've had, the more engaged that we are, the social interaction is everything. If you're at home because you don't feel that you can go out, so you may not be mobile now, you might not be driving, or you may be hearing or sight impaired, so you don't get engaged in things, it's a natural for you to age quicker than if you are out and doing things and being involved with people. It keeps you alive and energized longer. Would you agree? Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so ageism in healthcare. So, you know, this is something that, gosh, it's interesting how this has evolved. I'll share just a brief example. I just completed a transaction with a family that came as a referral to us, and it was the daughter that was in healthcare that called to say, Mom and Dad really need to make a move. Dad is just so stressed out. Mom has exhibited memory issues, and they just can't stay in their house anymore. We need you to get them out. Well, that's not really my role to get them out. We need you to do this. So when I went to see them the first time, both of them, Dad and Mom both, just were very with it, especially Mom. I mean, she greeted me, had me sit down, let me get you some water, let me get you some, you know, she was very with it. I didn't notice anything. And I do understand that oftentimes that people that have memory challenges present differently to a stranger than they do on a day-to-day basis. But as time went on, it turned out that the daughters were telling me, you need to do this with mom and dad. And mom and dad specifically was saying, I'm the owner of that house. I'm the one that makes the decision about what's going to happen there. I'm the one that you need to be talking to first. And the daughter would come right behind that and say, no, don't talk to them. Only talk to me. She's the power of attorney. Only talk to me. And it was really difficult as a professional trying to take care of my role to figure out who's my person. And I think also this can happen too when you're working in healthcare. Treatable conditions are dismissed as a part of aging. So Debbie, you and I talked about a lot of this, and you've been involved with this with your parents. So let's take this to you.
Yeah, so in that first bullet point, I think, you go in with an ache or pain and they just say, well, you're just getting older, and they don't investigate. They don't speak directly to the older adult. Like, I have gone to appointments with my mom, and the doctor will just turn and talk to me about what's going on versus talking to her. They use patronizing language, which is elder speak, which I've got it down there at the bottom. They use a baby talk or a pattern of speech that kind of talks down to you and makes it simplified for you. They don't include the older adult in the decision-making process. So again, with my mom's doctor, he was asking me the questions, and I would turn to her and say, what do you think? What do you want to do? And then they overtreat or undertreat conditions because you're older.
Debbie, I've got to say this. That's when you need to start going to a geriatric.
Right, geriatric specialist, correct. So one of the books that we're going to be giving away today that is a great read for anybody, actually, of any age. It's called How to Say It to Seniors, Closing the Communication Gap with Our Elders. This was one of the first books that was introduced to us years ago when we decided to change our business around a little bit and specialize, and there's a lot of nuggets in here. So we'll have a reference to this later, and this is one of our giveaways for today. Let's go to your next one.
So this is the effects of ageism. And so these are some of the negative things that can happen when you're exposed to ageism. Increased stress and anxiety, feelings of worthlessness, social rejection, increased risk of chronic illness, mental health and cognitive issues, depression, isolation, loneliness, believing those negative stereotypes about yourself, increased risk of cognitive decline, reduced access to health care. So you may be offered less care, just like we were talking about, delayed treatments, concerns dismissed as normal aging, and then decreased physical activity. Because you're feeling bad, you'll be less likely to engage in physical activity. It can exacerbate conditions like obesity, heart disease, and arthritis. And I think, I thought I had a bullet on there about people that are more engaged tend to live 7.5 years longer than people who aren't.
So the realities of aging here. Aging is really all about living. So live your life to the best that you can. That's really important. There are many shades of gray. Everyone ages differently, and as you can see here in this picture, there's several different shades of gray and how people are aging. Other older people are not burdens. They have a lot to contribute, and I think what's important is for us not to allow ourselves to be dismissed. We want people to know that we do want to have input, that we do want to be involved. We do want to be asked if we want to engage in an activity or a challenge or a trip. And then the perceptions are out of sync with reality. So here again, people make decisions based on the stereotypes that we talked about earlier. So you were going to talk about the difference in your mothers, your mom and your...
Yeah, did I already mention that? My mother-in-law is 85. She's very spry, very mentally with it, and she goes and does trips with her sisters, and she's just very young, 85. My mom, on the other hand, is 75, and she's had some medical issues and things like that, and I would say she's an older 75. So you really just can't base it on the number.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and my mom was 91 when she passed. My mom had vision issues like your mom does, macular degeneration, but my mom was not going to let that stop her from growing her roses that were, I don't know where she got those, but they were almost 6 feet high. Being able to go out there and pick weeds out of her garden, because that was super important to her. With 2 hip replacements, she was going to plan when the hips were going on or coming in, because she couldn't interfere with her gardening. But like that at 91 years. My dad retired, I'm going to say my dad maybe 66, 67. My dad retired to a recliner, a crock pot, and the newspaper. That's what he wanted. And my dad lived to be 80. But that time frame really shortened that up for him because he wasn't that active. He just took on, I'm retired, this is what I do.
So ways to combat ageism, it really starts with us. You have to recognize ageism in yourself. So do you avoid doing things because you think you're too old? Are you scared of what will happen to you as you age? Do you equate looking old with looking bad? Do you pretend you're younger than you are? And do you associate certain age milestones with being over the hill?
And overcoming age, so just like Debbie was saying here, you want to acknowledge it. If you feel that you're left out of the conversation, speak up. Hey, I have something that I want to add to that conversation. Speak up. People are impressed and admire you for stepping up versus stepping back because you don't know anything about that. If someone uses a condescending tone, well, tell them. Let them know, hey, what makes you think that I'm not able to go in and open up that account, or I'm not able to find that movie on Prime, or whatever the case may be. Education, I think, is everything. There's so many different opportunities for us now and vehicles for us to educate ourselves. I love Audible. I love being able to be out there and walking my dogs and listening to, I love podcasts. And because I'm still working every day, I love podcasts about being alive and generating new things in my business. But that keeps me ahead of what's going on out there. That's really important to me. So education is everything. This is what we're doing here together. We're sharing ideas together for us to go home and reflect on, which is really important. Stay active and engaged. We've talked about that. Shows you that you're independent and capable. That's really important. People want to see that, you can do that. So if I had to, well, I'm going to give you an example. So I flew to Orlando. Now, going there, usually John and I travel together. And I was going to be meeting all these women in Orlando. That's not fair. There were 3 men there too. I was meeting all these people there in Orlando, and our flights were all arriving at different times. And so I said to John, oh gosh, I've never been in that airport before. I'm not familiar with where I'm going. What do you think? What am I going to do there? And he says, well, call Uber. And I said, oh, yeah, call Uber. Well, I've only Ubered twice before, and he's been with me. So I go down, I get my bags, I'm feeling good, I'm going to do this. I go on my phone, and the next thing I know, I go into the Uber app, and it asked me to drag a little crosshair from South Africa to where I was on my continent. And I went, oh my God, that's it. What am I going to do with this? So I called him, and I said, well, I'm a little challenged here. I'm not sure I can do this. And he said, yes, you can. I said, well, I'm not exactly sure I could do this. How do I do that there? And he said, just see if you can figure that out, or look and see if there's somebody around you. Well, I have to tell you that it was hard on me to walk up to someone, a young lady at the desk, and say, I really need to call an Uber, but I'm not exactly sure how to do it. And she said, can I see your phone? Well, of course I'm saying, sure. She said, well, the reason that you can't do it is you haven't updated your app. Well, heck, I didn't know that. But the thing is that I was at a point where I was going to I was going to belittle myself that I am incapable of using something like this because of something like that. I want you to know that while I was there in Orlando, I arranged for 3 other Ubers on my own. I am empowered now when it comes to Uber. But here again, I felt like I'm traveling on my own. I haven't done this for a while. I'm in a big airport. Now I've got to take this on. What if I get in the car with somebody that's going to take me to a weird place? But you know what? It all turned out well. We may actually have a workshop next year on learning how to use Uber. I'm telling you, keep your eyes posted for that, because that's going to be something that we can have a lot of fun with. Okay. How many of you have reconnected with people that you haven't spoken to for years on Facebook? I'm from Colorado. I went to school in Colorado. John met his lovely wife there and brought me to Texas. There are people that I went to high school with. I had no clue who they were. I wasn't a cheerleader, but all of a sudden now I have people from Colorado that are connecting with me on Facebook and interested in the things that I'm doing with my life. And that's really kind of a fun thing to do, is to reconnect. So those of you that raised your hands, good on you. And those of you that didn't, get with it.
Okay, so a few more things you can do to overcome ageism. Be as independent as you can, as you safely can. It shows you don't need to be thought less of or talked down to. Helps you feel more empowered, and it lets your loved ones know that, let your loved ones know that you'll ask for help when you need it. And you shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help, but if you don't need it, then be independent, do it yourself. And then be aware of how you think and speak about yourself, which we've covered a few times. Just avoid joking about being too old. Be confident and self-assured, because when you are, others will follow. And don't accept ageist behavior from others. You deserve that respect. And somebody might call you a Karen or something like that, but you deserve the respect.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just telling on myself here. I have had so many different experiences to share with you. This one yesterday. So I've had some strange messages come up on my cell phone. Every time I try to enter a new contact, it comes up where I need to put in my password for my to get into my program. And I thought, well, that's weird. It asked me to go to settings. And when I click on settings, it takes me to another screen and another screen. So yesterday afternoon, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I need to find out what's wrong with this. I'm going to get on the phone with Apple's support. I want you to hear me on this. This is pretty important. I go out on the internet and I Google Apple tech support, and I get this gentleman on the phone that's talking very fast to me. And I said, hold on a minute. This is what my issue is. And who are you? Are you who you say you are? Are you with Apple? I want to know that. And he said, of course I am. Here's my LinkedIn page. Go out and look me up on LinkedIn. It said senior analyst, senior consultant for Apple. So I begin to tell him my problem, and now he's telling me that over 89 people have used my cell phone number in the last 2 days from Ohio. And I said, what does that mean? I've never been to Ohio. I'm not sure what that is. He goes, are you sure you don't know anything? I said, no, I don't know. The next thing that happened with that is he asked me to go into my settings and look to see what kind of programs I had on my phone. So I'm thinking, okay, well, let me go see if there's anything I'm not familiar with. And then he said, here's the best way for you to do this. Why don't you go into Venmo, there's Zelle and there's Venmo, and set up a dummy transaction so we can see if those people that are in Ohio are monitoring your phone. And I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? He goes, let me just send you a code. So he sends me a code 1475. He said, I want you to make a dummy withdrawal of $1,475 so we can make sure that there are not other people that are monitoring your phone. And I said, nope, not doing that. I'm not doing anything with money. I had an issue like this last year. I remember getting on tech support with Apple, and it seemed like it was a 30-minute fix. I'm not doing this. He says, believe me, believe me, believe me. I said, no, I'm done with this. I don't care who you are on Facebook or on LinkedIn. I am hanging up now. I'm not doing this. Well, I'm fretting thinking, oh my gosh, my bank account has been emptied. We've had that happen with one of our attendees. Imagining that I've just been scammed. This morning, I called Apple support to set up an appointment at the Genius Bar over here on University. And this young lady went through and she said, I can get that appointment for you. She said, if you don't mind, I don't even need to get on your phone. What is your issue? And I told her what it was, and she said, would you be okay if I told you to go and check the safety, the privacy and the safety on your phone? I don't have to see any of it. She said, it'll take 2 minutes. I went and looked, there was nothing wrong. She said, here's what your issue is. We would never ask you for money. We would never ask you to log in somewhere. That transaction you had yesterday, good thing you hung up. Here's how you fix that. And in 2 minutes, I had my problem fixed on my phone. But last night, I worried all night long that everything about who I am was being taken away. Now that's something that's important for all of us, no matter what age we are, to be aware of what's out there and the scams that are out there.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about more in November, so make sure you come to that one. Let's see, we've done this one, we can go to the next one. Other ways you can combat ageism, advocacy, so voice your concerns, let your lawmakers know, join advocacy groups, engage with your community, mentor younger generations, participate in educational programs, promote positive representation, so lead by example, support media representation, and challenge those negative stereotypes.
So something that, some research that I did on the mentor programs, there may be things that you've done in your past that you were a specialist on, engineering, accounting, those kinds of things, where you might look in to see, is there a mentoring program where maybe there's someone that you can actually help that's learning to get into that area. I read in this book, which is also going to be one of our giveaways, it's called Stage, Not Age. Troy, I think I got you that book last year. You did. Probably read it, all of it, or will. Yeah. Well, and I told you I love Audible. Well, I've been listening to this book, and it had a great piece in there. AARP has created a hatchery innovation group, and the hatchery innovation group is there to develop and help people develop ideas and services for the longevity customer, which would be all of us. So mentoring programs, AARP has the hatchery program. You might look into that if you have an interest there.
So what does successful aging mean to you? So recognizing ageism is the hardest part, but once you've done that, you gain your awareness. That's why you're here today. Decide what you want your elderhood to look like. And that's a term that you're hearing more and more. You have childhood, adulthood, elderhood. Acknowledge that ageism exists, both internally and externally. Change your language and the way of thinking about age. Create a plan for a good life, and then prepare for a good death. And then that says stay active, stay independent, stay happy.
So while I was away on my trip with my group, one of the things that we listened to, are any of you familiar with Gladys McGarry? Gladys is 103 years old and still very active. And there was just you can find her on YouTube, And this was just a little snippet from one of the interviews that she did that I thought was useful for today's seminar.
We will probably have to hold the microphone
Okay.
since it's not through the sound system. I mean, I'm not sure. But
Or the sound's not on at all.
What's the difference between people who live with regrets and people like yourself who don't?
Well, I think I have a choice. I could spend my time trying to fix something from the past, or I could get on with what life is doing. Let me tell you a joke. I mean, this actually happened. I'd had my 99th birthday party, and I was at the grocery store. And I got my groceries, and I was taking them off to my car. And elderly gentleman came by, and he greeted me, and he said, well, may I help you? And I said, no, you don't need to, I can do this. And he stood up straight, and he said, well, I'm 86 years old. Well, I stood up by my cart, and I said, well, I'm 99. And I marched off and got in my car and sat down and said, you nasty old lady. What a terrible thing. He was just a nice old man that was trying to do a nice thing. And you better get out of this car and go into the grocery store and apologize to him, because that was a terrible thing to do. And then I got to thinking about what it was. And I got to laughing, because I said to myself, two kindergarten kids trying to abuse each other, and I got to laughing so hard I couldn't get out of the car, and I finally said, what's going to really happen is he's going to go home, and he's going to say to his wife, you know what happened? I tried to help an old lady, and that nasty old lady, and so I thought the two of them would have a good laugh about it at home. I have them laughing about it in my car, and I didn't need to go and try and fix it. So what I'm telling this is, there are times when we do things that we regret, and we can spend a lot of time trying to fix them. And it may be totally unnecessary, because it may be just a process that needs to be gone through in order to live through it and not just get over it.
So the name of this YouTube is Life is Short. A 103-year-old shares 5 lessons for the next 50 years of your life. And if you want to look that up, her name is Gladys, Gladys, and her last name is McGarey, McGarey. It's about an hour. She goes into several other things there. She's got several different things. She's a doctor, and she's very interesting to listen to. And what I thought was interesting about this, while we were all talking about older people and being put off to the side or have to retire early, here's somebody that's 103 years old, still vibrant and going. She may not be running a marathon or out there dancing every day, but she's got a lot to say, and she's very with it. So I was impressed by that. Okay, so here's some great references. We talked about How to Say It to Seniors. That's a book that I would advise all of you to get. And if you don't want to buy the hard copy, you can get it for Kindle. It's a great book, great read. Stage Not Age is a good book. It is it's more of a facts type book on aging and what's available out there and what are people saying and what are the different stages of the life that are out there. And then this last one, I just got this myself. I was looking over the weekend and I thought this book looked pretty interesting, The Fourth Quarter of Your Life, Embracing What Matters Most. And what I thought was really cool about this, first thing, it's an easy read. I don't have to put my readers on. It's an easy read, But it's got a lot of different things that you can do in there, in that book, that help you to think further about what has your life been like, and what contributions have you made, and what would the rest of your life look like if you started today doing things differently. So I would recommend this one, the fourth quarter of your year, of your life.
Okay, so we're wrapping up. Ageism Awareness Day is October 9th, and this the American Society on Aging has some great social media graphics and a whole package on the Ageism Awareness Day that I will share with you if you want to share your email with us. I have most of your emails, but if you put it on your evaluation form, I'll make sure to send that out. We'll send you the Ageism Awareness Day info, the information on the books, a link to the video, and a link to the studies that we've referenced today, so that you'll have those and you can look over them.
That's great. That's great. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and go to questions or comments before we do our drawing for today. Yes. Go ahead.
You said Gladys McCary was a doctor. Do you know what of?
I believe gerontology. Yes.
A couple of things. The types of ageism, the slide that you were talking about, it also may go another way, because when I'm speaking to younger people, or what I've heard in conversations, an older person may say something like, "You wouldn't understand because you're," the slide said, "You wouldn't understand because you're too old." Or, on the other hand, I would say something like, "Well, I remember when I was your age,
Right.
and I used to do this, that, and the
Right.
other." So it kind of goes both ways. And the other observation I had when you all were talking about perceptions out of sync with reality, I thought of people in the media and entertainment that I recognized growing up. Jack LaLanne
Yes.
was certainly a memory
Yes.
for me. Dolly Parton.
Yes.
Ronald Reagan, because he always looked younger forever. And
The movie's great, by the way.
yeah. And George Hamilton, and I believe he is still alive and tanned.
Yes. And Richard Gere.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I have two more. You all may have some in your head. Lassie and Mr. Ed.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that.
Yeah. Who else? Okay. All right.